We are moving on to the third episode of Private Eye's The Money Shot, which is some horse racing, and it's pretty exciting stuff. Are you ready to talk about that one?
Let's do it. The Money Shot. Shade and Angie search for a prized racehorse. Shade considers cheating on his PI exam. I love how they call him Shade in the descriptions. Because I'm like, at first I'm like, who's Shade? I'm like, oh, okay, Matt, right? So,
It is a
um,
great Private Eye name.
it really is. It really is. I like how the title Money Shot, I think, really nailed the theme of this episode with the pictures of the affair or the winner of a horse race. The actual episode itself was my least favorite because of the horse racing, which again, I said I was going to contradict myself later this week. So when you hear me talk about the hats off to love, different take. But horse racing and just anything, even my murder she wrote episodes, because there are some horse racing ones, they don't interest me for whatever reason. I do like though that we got to meet her mom, and so we got to see Angie's mom, and that's how she made that introduction. The bad guys in this movie are kind of like really bad and like kicking Matt when he's down, then just to realize, oh, maybe they actually aren't the bad guys. The older lady who is supposed to be like the bad lady at first, but she is actually saving these horses. She's in Virgin River, and she is the bad lady in Virgin River,
Ooh.
like super bad. So at first when she was on screen, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just always cast as this horribly mean person. And then, it turns out she's okay. And then for the mom and how they ended the episode, there's intrigue there of like, what are they going to do with this storyline? And then Matt not cheating on his PI exam in the end, and how they tied that in with the daughter. And just, I really enjoyed how they're really weaving things in, and it's not just like one off things, it all ties together. So I'm hoping, because I know we've already watched the next episode. And I know Angie's mom, I don't think there was any mention in there, as is that other detective that we liked too.
Right.
So I'm hoping that, they will throw those back in as the season starts to go, since we know there are 5 seasons. And I think a West Coast Private Eyes was officially like greenlit, and they're just waiting to
It's
find someone who's
actually going in production as we speak.
sweet. So I think that would be really fun if Hallmark would pick that up and have it air on Hallmark Plus, probably another network too, because that's going to be a little bit bigger draw for people, would be my guess. So yeah, I'm excited to see more of these and keep diving into the series. But if I looked at, because now I have actually watched that 4th episode, this is probably my least favorite of the 4 that I've seen.
I agree with you. I liked the fact how the dad and the daughter, Jules, are integrated into, well, it's not the mystery plot, it's very integrated into the character development. And they're not just token extra people, right? It really did. It is, Matt struggling, like, talks to his dad about how, oh, I've always just basically skated by because I was an athlete, so I didn't have, which maybe you can really, I'm surprised you didn't relate to this triple athlete.
Do not play professional basketball, so no,
Um,
cannot
but
relate.
how he's saying, academically, he was, there's the understanding, and so they, he did not always try so hard at school and would just still pass. And then it came time to, and he always would take shortcuts. And so when it came time for the exam, and he was looking at his daughter, and like I say, it just wove into not just that story, but the character. So I really like how they do that. It was a fun glimpse into Angie, and how she wouldn't accept the case, and then all of a sudden the guy's like, "It all whatever it was, triple your fee, or here's your down payment, you'll get triple
Yes,
this,"
please.
and all of a sudden it's like, I'm on. So I thought that was just a fantastic thing about just her character, and not in a bad way, not like she's just greedy, but she's a very big realist. Like, yeah, I've got my, what I like, my moral code, or my this, that, or the other, and oh, price tag, I'm done, that's it. It was fun when Jason hopped on the horse and was riding the horse. towards the end. I thought that was just kind of fun as
That
he's,
was nice.
trying to escape with the horse. And he's riding bareback, which I was looking and maybe it seemed like it was really him riding the horse. Now, maybe it was just really good camera work and they had the stunt double riding it, but it did look like he was riding it. And I've never ridden a horse bareback, but I have to assume it's tougher. I will say, though, that and little petty thing. They had the scene before they had the horse with like the lead, which is sort of like a rope type thing. And also when he's riding it, it's got reins magically, which probably helped, but whatever. It's just, you know, this is what it is. It's fun. It was like, I agree with you. It was fun seeing Angie's mom introduced because we've heard about her dad and we know something there, but her mom, kind of the con womany type character, and the ending, oh my gosh, that ending was powerful when she's like, I don't want anything to do with my mom. And Matt talks her into like, people change, look at me, and this, that, and the other. And so she ends up agreeing to go meet her mom, and then her mom stands her up. I thought that was a really like, it's a fun, light mystery series, but they give us these little glimpses into real emotion, and I thought that was great. And I think both, by the way, I'll say, like going into it thinking, oh, Jason Priestley, 90210, I was whatever cheesy. I'll say I think both him and Cindy, when it comes time to be like show acting chops, they both can do it. And like I say, at the end, it really, really moved me. So I liked it.
I did not watch. I was a little bit too young for 90210, so I really don't have
I
any
was old enough and I did
connotation.
not watch it, kind of
Yeah,
like
I'm like, I
Private
don't have
Eyes.
any expectations of him. So I've been thinking both are great and enjoying them. So anything that we didn't like. So for me, the only thing again is just the premise of it with the horses. I don't know why. It's just my thing when I have the horses. I love horses, love to ride horseback, but I don't know why I just don't like those episodes. Sometimes we just have those things that we're just like, it's not a super interesting
We like
subject.
what we like.
Right. So what about you? Anything you didn't like?
Well, mine is I'm a little concerned that you only need a 53% to pass a detective test. And so that has me a little concerned. So I think that probably you or I could get a
I was
53.
say, well, let's see.
So let's
How
go
much
get
do you
our
get paid?
detective license
Let's do
in
it.
Canada.
Our PI license,
Yeah,
private eye. Different than
so
detective, right? A
yeah,
private investigator is
yeah.
different than the
Oh, you're
detective.
right. Yeah, private investigator. I think private detective, but same thing. Yeah, private,
Yeah.
not a I'm sure
Yeah.
police academies requires a little more than 53%. And then we didn't get to see Detective Derek again, which was something you and I had both, last week said we were looking forward to getting more of that antagonistic relationship, that sort of other character. But I get it because they're not quite at home per se. They're away at this thing, and the guy says, "I don't want police involved." So it does set up while he's not involved, but I do want to see more of him. So I'm hoping it's not a one off from that last episode.
Well, what we thought of the actual mystery, I
And we
really enjoyed
are,
it.
sorry, we are giving spoilers. So if anyone's
Yes.
doesn't want to know, fast forward a little bit.
Lots of twists with this one. I love that the horse ended up getting the happy ending and how, he rode it off, how Matt rode the horse off, and then obviously got beat up. And I was like, oh no, they really did lose the horse. And then no, come to
Right.
find out that was all staged and planned, which I'm assuming that's probably the difference between like your PI versus your actual detective is you can do that. Whereas I feel like that might be against the law in some capacity, right? If you're a
Well,
detective, you probably
if you
have to
get a
disclose
53
that to
on
your
your
client,
PI thing, you can do these things. Probably
right?
if
It
you got
just,
an 88%, you don't do this.
right. So that would be the other little thing. Is it realistic? Can they do that? I suppose based on them being PIs versus true working for the police. But overall, great. Loved it.
I I thought it hopped around a little bit, but you know, some of the story lost on the editing. Do you need to go?
No, my son just poked his head in and shut the door. So we're good.
Okay. I thought it hopped around a little bit. I think some of the story may have got lost on the editing room floor, but you know,
In
minor.
what way do you
It
think?
it just sort of some of the jumps just it went from here and you're like, wait, how did we get going forward? So I don't know. It just could have been, but it's also a 44-minute, right? So they've got to move things along where maybe in that hour and
It's the difference between you and I's
23,
viewing.
right?
I love
Where
the
it can
jumps,
go
and
a
you're
little,
like, what
right.
happened?
You don't like when they go in
And
the
I'm like, what
details and
jumps? I
stuff.
didn't
And so
notice
for
any.
me, I like some of that little more detail where all of a sudden they just jump
Oh,
and there's the conclusion. But once again, it's a 44 minutes, so you got to keep that pace going. So I get, and once it didn't ruin it by any means because I really truly enjoyed this episode way more than you did. But it's also as soon as you see the tech, the rich tech guy, you're like, oh, he's evil. So he was ultimately somehow going to be involved. And then if you really dissect his plan to kidnap the horse for breeding, it doesn't actually work because you would never, if you stole the horse for breeding, you couldn't ever announce that you use this horse for breeding. So it kind of doesn't quite make sense. So he may be a rich tech guy, but he's not a mastermind criminal, is all I'll say. But
well, standout scene or performance. We have already mentioned the scene several times, but the runaway horse scene, that one is my favorite. That horse, it just kind of gets to go to its little happy place and live its life. And I found that to be for sure the standout scene for me. What about you?
mine, I mentioned earlier, was Angie going to meet her mom against all her better judgment, sitting there like, okay, I'm hoping for some redemption. It's, a kid and their parent. And ultimately, as much as you may not, be happy with your parents and have your issues with them, at the end of the day, you really do want to have that relationship. So it just, it really stood out to me. And like I say, it was a tremendously emotional ending.
Well, that was kind of my final thoughts was that last scene, had me wanting more and wanting to see more about Angie's backstory, and just her complicated past and how did this all come to be and what happened between her and her parents. Obviously, it looks like they probably split up at some point because they seem to be quite opposites. So, how did they get together in the first place? All of that is kind of, again, that sets you up with, we know, there are 5 seasons. Like, I'm sure we're going to get some of this laid out as we continue on. So
For me, I'm curious as to now that he's an official PI, what changes for Matt Shade's character, because once again, maybe he does have to follow the rules a little bit more because he's officially can be reprimanded or lose his license or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see if that plays in there. As we mentioned before, is Detective Derek coming back? And I do want to hear, Angie clearly has a lot of backstory there between her dad and now her mom. So I just really am liking getting to know Angie, and she's the onion, right? With all these layers to her character. So I'm hoping we get to see more and more of that.
love it. All right. Well, let's dive into next week.
All right. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark channel.